Let's go straight to boot camp and 2 words, Dale die.
Captain Die. Captain Die. I don't know what it was about Captain Die. We always got on really, really well. I don't know why. Some people... no one really hated him, but some people were just like, man, he's always on my case, and I always got on really, really well with him. And when I saw him, the few occasions I've seen him post, once we'd wrapped filming, I was always really glad to see him, and he was always, he always made plenty of time for me. I didn't have the whole boot camp experience, because, although Babe, he was there from the start in terms of jumping, doing the D-Day jumps and all that. He jumped in with HQ, so he was, although he came in as a replacement, he had, he had been there from the beginning, but so I didn't get to do the boot camp with the guys. I did I spent a day. They were doing some manoeuvres one day, and they called me in early to. I did a costume fitting, and then I spent the day mainly with Stokey, doing some manoeuvres and stuff. But Captain Die was great. He's a unique individual. That's the only way to describe Captain.
Do you have an impersonation that you would like to give?
You've got to get Rick Gomez on to do that. He's got it. It's got. Well, he's got. I mean, he does it in the show, but I mean, he could just summon it like that. He could just bring it. If he needed to, he could bring it.
Then again, the fandom split down the middle between Cudlitz and Gomez. Some people say Cudlitz.
Really?
Yeah, some people says Cudlitz does it best. Some say Rick Gomez.
See, now you mention that. I do. Yes. I'm now recalling instances of Bull giving it the full Captain Die. He was such. I mean, I think there's an element of I can't even call him Dale. He is Captain Die.
Right.
I think there's an element where he is aware of I think there's a public Captain Die and there's a private Captain Die, and I think he's aware that the public Captain Die is something that he's to an extent. I think he slightly parodies himself. I think he knows that he's slightly larger than life, and and he sends himself up slightly.
Well, I'm pretty sure that his wife would be probably one of a small few number of people who actually know the private Captain Die.
Indeed.
He seems to me like a very open and honest person, but yet it's a equal but separate kind of a position from Captain Die and Dale Die.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. And as you say, he's a very honest and very open guy, and I enjoy spending time with him. And any time I've had the opportunity to spend time with him, I always enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll get the chance to enjoy it again. Mm-hmm. But I think you're absolutely right. I think he, as we all do, I think he keeps something back for at home.
Now, did you find the boot camp hard to do? Were you pretty in shape? Were you like ready to go, good with the physical stuff, or were you at the back of the pack coughing and sweating up a storm?
Well, as I say, I didn't get I hesitate to say privilege of the full boot camp that the rest of the guys went through, but that day that I spent doing manoeuvres and a bit of weapons training and stuff gave me an inkling as to what was going to be expected. And you've got to remember, Nightmare, this was 10 years ago. I was a young man then. I could I could run all day and sit up drinking all night, and
So 10 years ago, you were 24.
I was 24 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was a fit man. I played a lot of football, emphasis on the foot and ball as opposed to the throwing kind that you guys...
Right.
Yes. So soccer. So I played a lot of soccer. I was still skateboarding at that point, and that was... at that point, I was probably... that was a good 12 years I'd been skateboarding then. So I was... I was fit then. I was fit.
So you and Jimmy Madio were top of the list then?
I don't think I'd go quite that far. I mean, he's a machine.
Well, okay, let's talk about Jimmy, because everyone seems to have a great Jimmy Madio story. Whether it's Neal McDonough getting beat on and attacked and bitten by Jimmy, or the fisticuffs that may or may not have happened outside of the pub one night.
My abiding memory of Jimmy was, I can't even remember where it was. I think it might have been in a period where we maybe spent a week where we were filming every day in the back of Deuce and a Half's. And I remember Jimmy and Rick Gomez, they just started playing this game. I mean, I don't know what it's called. Maybe you'll be able to fill me in, but one of them would punch the other one on the top of the arm, on the sort of bicep. Or, on the side of the arm. They're sitting side by side. One would punch the other one. And then Jimmy would punch Rick back,
Yep.
And then Rick would punch Jimmy back. And Jimmy would punch Rick back. And this would just go on. And I don't know, I never quite ascertained what the cut-off point was. If it was one of them had to go, right, okay, that's enough. Or if it was, and they never made any noise. So maybe it was just one of them going, ouch! And that was enough. I don't know. But the two of them, by the end of the time we'd been spent in the back of, I'm sure it was in the back of Deuce and a Half's. By the end of the time we'd spent these couple of days filming, they both had kind of lost the use of their whichever arm it was they'd been hitting. The tops of their arms were just purple.
That's awesome.
Purple.
And the name of that game, by the way, is Mama, He's on My Side. Because it's been played in the back of station wagons for as long as Americans have had station wagons, and you never give in until you're absolutely to the point of tears, and then you scream, "Mama, he's on my side!"
It all makes
Stop
sense,
touching me!
Obviously.
I think they called it like Sissy or something like that.
Right, Sissy.
Sissy,
Yeah.
Nice. So going along with the trends of boot camp questions, Anthony from Canada wanted to know, how long did it take you to get used to your boots?
Oh, man, they hurt for a long time. They were just the stiffest things. They were just incredible sort of unmalleable leather, which and I kind of thought, hey, well, maybe the more I polish them, then the softer they'll get. But if anything, the Cordovan polish I just seem to make them stiffer. And I actually had a bit of a scare recently. When we filmed Band of Brothers, I lived in London, and we moved to Edinburgh from London about 4 years ago, nearly 4.5 years ago. And it was about maybe 6 weeks ago, I suddenly said to my partner, I said, "Have you seen my Corcoran boots?" She said, No. And I started to get really worried. And I started looking through the house for them. And we moved within Edinburgh. We moved about 1.5 years ago.
Oh, no.
And I was trying to think, I was thinking, I can't, they would in the old house, they would have been in that cupboard. I must have packed them up. And I'm looking everywhere. I cannot find them. I cannot find these boots. And I'm devastated. I'm bereft. I can't. And then we still have a house in London, which we were letting out to some tenants. And then they moved out, so we decided to sell our house. And this is about 3 weeks ago. So I go down to London just to check everything's okay before we hand back the deposit to the tenants and just get the house ready for selling. And I go up into the loft, into the attic space, and because I knew there was some stuff up there. And I'm looking through, and I unzip a hold-all. And on the top of the hold-all, there's various things from when I was a kid, like old soccer tops, and just stuff that t-shirts that don't fit you anymore, but you kind of think, well, that was a really special t-shirt. I'm going to keep that, Mm-hmm. And I'm pulling stuff out, and there in this hold-all are my Corcoran boots, And I've never felt so glad to see an item of clothing in my entire life. I was just like, oh man, oh thank God.
Did you take your shoes off right then and there and put them on?
I did. I sat.
I knew it.
Took my shoes off. I put them on, and they still hurt, man.
Even after broken in, they hurt your feet?
He was like
10 years later, they still hurt. They're just no, they weren't too bad, but I could feel. It's funny because when you first wear them, they because they're stiff, they nip and hurt certain parts of your feet, and so it doesn't really matter how soft they get. You're wearing them every day for 6 months, so those bits of your feet that have been nipped and bruised, they don't get any chance to recover. So they kind of never stopped hurting, really, But I've got to say, once we started filming, or the guys started filming in March. I started filming in May. Once we got to October, November, and the rains really came, the Corcoran boots came into their own because we've been polishing them for 6 months. So they were, They couldn't be any more waterproof. They were incredible. And boy, did it rain. There was one day we arrived and literally things were floating away. I mean, the tent that we got changed in, it was a huge marquee, had actually floated, sort of several meters away from where it normally was. It was pandemonium.
That's the first time we heard about this.
That's the first time we heard about the floating tent.
Oh, gee, what was it? Episode 8. I can't remember what it's called. What's episode 8 called?
They'll know in the chat room. Give us a second for the delay.
We go across the river to take some prisoners.
Oh yeah.
It was Ian Bailey's main. It was his kind of episode. It was Webster's episode. It was all from his point of view.
Last Patrol.
There you have it.
The Last Patrol.
The Last Patrol, thank you.
Yeah.
And
Francisca is on top of it. Meg's on top of it. Kimmy won, absolutely.
Yep.
So is Mr. Ross Owen. It's just popped up on my screen. Mr. Ross Owen.
Yes.
Has said Last Patrol. So that was just, we were wading around in, I'm thinking, between your ankle and your knee of mud. I'm not water, mud. Because there were deuce and a halves driving everywhere. So within a day or two, it was just incredible. It was incredible. It was a deluge just for that small period. But the Corcorans really kicked in then. I was glad of them then, and it didn't matter how much they hurt. They kept me dry.